Welcome to the Women in Industry podcast. My name is Kirsty Davies-Chinnock, and today I'm talking to Emma Hockley. Emma is the Managing Director at Bear Plastic Products Ltd. And Bear Plastic Products Ltd are the UK's leading manufacturer of technical thermoformed plastic components, and they specialise in the design, development, prototyping and production of large and medium-sized vacuum-formed parts in single sheet, twin sheet and pressure forming technology. And I don't know much at all about technical thermoformed plastic components, so I'm looking forward to finding out. So welcome, Emma. It's lovely to see you again.
Thank you, Kirsty. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this podcast. I'm really excited. Thank you.
Well, the last time we met was also a really, much more exciting event, wasn't it, than a podcast? It was at the Manufacturer Top 100. And so congratulations on being named a Top 100 in 2023. What's that meant to you?
Well, it was lovely to have that recognition, and I really took it more for the company than for myself personally, because we've been on such a journey over the last few years, really, and especially in the last 12 to 15 months. It's been a really hard slog. So to have that kind of just a little recognition was really nice, and something that I took back to my whole team just to say well done and thank you, because everyone's put in so much work to get us to where we are now.
I think everyone over the last 12 months has sort of seen it's been a bit of a hard slog. But you're not a stranger to hard work, because you took over as MD in the middle of the pandemic in 2020, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Lucky me. The honour of taking over, March 2020. So certainly was a baptism of fire, and seemed to, like most of my manufacturing career, learnt the hard way. Um, but yeah, it was a very difficult time for everybody, really. But there was a real feeling of camaraderie, I think, and team spirit, and not just here at Big Bear, but amongst all manufacturers. And I think everybody really wanted to support each other during that time, because it was something new for everyone. And yes, it was new for me as an MD, but there wasn't another MD who'd been through that same situation either, I suppose. So yeah, it was a very busy time. I don't think I kept hearing about people at home watching Netflix and baking bread and stuff, and I was like, oh, never been busier in my life. But it was yeah, it was a bit crazy, but it was a good learning experience for sure.
I can really empathise, because I took over as MD 3 months before the financial crash in 2008. And that actually forms part of my bio now. And I just sort of say, I've always had impeccable timing. But I hear you with the COVID, everyone baking bread. I developed what I term COVID Tourette's, sort of driving to and from work 15, 16-hour days, 7 days a week. And all the radio adverts were about taking your walk, baking your bread, and I just
Yeah.
used to swear at the radio.
Yeah.
So you've had a baptism of fire, as you say, in your career in manufacturing. But prior to manufacturing, you had a really, really successful career at Harrods in the buying department, with a massive budget. Tell me about how you started at Harrods and how you sort of moved to the position you held there.
Yes, well, you couldn't imagine a more different working environment than this factory in Harrods. But yeah, talk about from one extreme to the other. I started at Harrods on work experience. I got some work experience, and then they invited me to stay. I started in the press office, and then I was doing PR for the women's wear and the fashion, and then I moved across to beauty. And eventually I took over all the PR and marketing for the beauty division. And then I became the Perfumery and Cosmetics buyer, and I did that role for about 3 or 4 years. And then I was headed up the marketing for the beauty division, which was about £100 million business, as you say. So it
Wow.
was Yeah, it was an amazing place to work. I was there during the Mr. Fayed era, so it was all about retail theatre, and my job was very much. I mean, we're working with the best brands in the world, so it was a real privilege, and they wanted to work with Harrods, and because we were a window to the world for these brands, and people come to Harrods and they want to see something that they can't find anywhere else in the world. So my job was to negotiate with the brands to give us exclusive launches before anybody else. So with the fragrance launches, they would be big splashes across the store, across all of the front windows, on all the promotional sites. And anytime you see a brand at Harrods that's on those sites, they pay for the privilege of being on those promotional sites. So it was my job to make sure that all those sites were sold throughout the year, that we changed them over every 2 weeks to a new brand, a new exclusive launch. And then I think there were about 5 different promotional sites and windows, the Harrods magazine. So I had to sell all of that marketing collateral to the brands that I was working with and negotiating to bring in exclusively as well. And then it was negotiating the brand adjacencies, because it's all about the politics with Dior's can't sit next to Chanel, and
They do
yeah,
on my dressing table, so they just
yeah,
have to
it
like it
was
and love
great
it, I'm
fun.
afraid.
It was a really fun place to work. I mean, it was hard. It was very high standards, very high expectation. You can imagine being run by Mr. Fayed was who was quite a hard boss to work for. But I think people really enjoyed it there because it was just so magical and so different. And my boss, she was a little bit like, Meryl Streep's character in The Devil Wears Prada.
Yes,
It was
really.
very like that. But she was really, really tough, but she was really inspiring as well. And she could be horrible, but she was so you wanted to do a good job for her and you wanted to please her really. And she was very inspiring and taught me a lot about business and a lot about customers and everything really. So I was very lucky to have the opportunity to work for her, and indeed a lot of inspirational women there, because a lot more women in senior roles there than there certainly are that I come across today. So that was another thing that was very different.
And I mean, there is only one Harrods, so it's there are very few businesses where there is just the one. Even going back to Dior and Chanel, um, they're unique to themselves, but they sit alongside, but obviously not too close to other really sort of high profile brands, don't they? Um, and obviously you were there, what, 9 years, was it?
Yeah, something like that.
And then you moved back to Birmingham, you and your husband, to be closer to your family when you were starting your own family. And when you were looking to go back to work after you had your son, did you sort of plan to work with your father, or, you know, did you have any inkling that that would happen?
No, not really. It wasn't on my agenda. I mean, I loved working at Harrods. And when I left Harrods, I actually left on maternity leave. I didn't plan to be off permanently, but over the course of being away and having gone back to Birmingham, I just thought there's no way I can work at Harrods and do this. It's not going to be feasible. So, I had ideas, grand ideas of nipping up on the train and back again. But it wasn't that kind of place. And it was great at a time in my life where I didn't have children, and I didn't have to be home by a certain time, and I could do all the after work events and the breakfast meetings and all the things that that came with that particular role, which was fab when you're not having to rush home for bath time or dinner time or whatever. Yeah, it wasn't really feasible. So then I was looking for something else that maybe I could be doing. And I'd done some marketing work previously for one of my dad's companies. And so yeah, so I started at Big Bear just doing some marketing work. I went in to revamp the website because the website was really old and needed a facelift. So I did that, and then I just kind of never left.
I saw some questions when someone was interviewing you, and you said that the more questions you asked about Big Bear when you were sort of doing the initial marketing bits and the website bit, and then the next bit, that the more you got interested and the more it sort of grabbed hold of you? I mean, was there a single eureka moment, or had you sort of been there a while and then suddenly realised you knew what you were doing?
No, I'm still waiting for that moment.
Tell me
Um,
about it.
I just think, the more I'd obviously grown up listening to my father talking about plastics, or he'd pick up the blueberry container at breakfast, like, oh, we could make that. um, but it never really been on my agenda that I would join the business. And I was having a great time at Harrods, and it didn't really occur to me until I started working here. And I think it's like anything, the more you start to understand it, the more you become interested in it, and the more you want to find out. And I started to ask at home to my dad, well, why do they do it like that? That seems really odd. Or wouldn't it be better if they did it like this? And he'd sort of turn around to me and say, well, don't ask me, ask them. Because at that point, he wasn't that involved in the day-to-day running of the business. He'd his previous company was acquired in 1998, and he'd kind of started Big Bear as a second company, and it was being run sort of for him, really. And so I started there, and I think generally made a bit of a nuisance of myself and wanted to know, well, why do we do it like this? What? But yeah, I generally wasn't that well received in terms of my questions, because
We've
I
always
don't
done
know.
it that way.
Yeah, exactly. That was the response, because we do, and I assumed that because I didn't know, my background wasn't manufacturing, or because, I'm not an engineer, or, well, they must know better than I do. So I found it really hard to challenge. And, I'd raise things with my father, and he'd be like, yes, you're right, that you should ask them. But when I asked the question at work, it was very hard to kind of push through well, that's how it's done, and we ain't changing. So that was a big challenge for a while.
Change management is difficult, particularly when you've got a team who've been there, for a while. You've got
Yeah,
it's a double-edged sword. You've got people who are good at what they do. They're loyal. They come in every day. They've done that for years, and you couldn't run the company without them. But because they've come in every day for years and they're loyal and they've always done it that way, you can get them to change. And even if they agree with you, if you go back 2 weeks later, they've gone back to how they used to do
yeah.
it. And it's just about being consistent in that. I would have thought that you being sort of completely from a different industry, on the one hand, whilst it would be more challenging to ask the questions and get the response you wanted. On the other hand, because you're looking at it with completely fresh eyes, no preconceived ideas, that you'd actually notice more than a lot of other people would. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. And I think I did notice a lot of things, but at the time, when I was quite new into coming in, I didn't have the confidence to have the courage of conviction to say, no, that's not right. It should be, let's try it a different way, or push back on being told no all the time. And it was quite demoralizing, to be honest with you, because I wanted to make changes and I wanted to do things, but I didn't have, whether it was my own lack of self-belief, or nobody. I think when I came here, I was the boss's daughter, and I'd just come out of Harrods. It was very much like, well, what do you know? And possibly quite rightly, but it wasn't, oh, well, maybe she brings a different perspective, and she's worked with. Nobody asked me what I'd done before or what I could bring. I was just kind of put in a corner, and it's left to my own devices. So I wasn't able to sort of say, well, I've worked with the top brands in the world, and I've negotiated exclusive launches, and I've £1 million deals, and perhaps I might be well placed doing sales or marketing, or so I was very much kind of just left. And that's why I started to ask questions and do things on my own accord. And then but what I realized then, when I did eventually was able to bring in a new team later on, I felt very vindicated, because the new team walked in and were like, right, we need to do this, this, and this. And I was like,
Told you.
That's what I've been saying. But for my own, I don't know, my own lack of conviction or my own weakness, I wasn't able to, as my dad would say, make it happen at the shop floor level because I didn't have the backing of the team that were there at the time in terms of, that level of, yeah, let's try something new.
And the
So
whole point about trying something new is if you try 10 things, not all 10 are going to work. And you need to try it, make the mistake, see it fail, and go, it was worth a punt. But that's not
absolutely.
going to work. Let's throw that idea in the bin, or at
Yeah,
least put it in a cupboard, and it might work in the future with different technology or different machinery. But the only way you're going to learn and grow as an individual or a company is to try it and get it wrong.
oh yeah, well, definitely done that. But yeah, absolutely, you've got to try, or you don't know. You can't discount something if you haven't tried it. Um, so yeah.
So once you sort of started to ask the questions and got more confident, and were starting to lead the teams at Big Bear, did your really extensive and impressive experience at Harrods, did that then start to help boost your confidence? Did you sort of start to go, I do know what I'm doing?
Well, I think my main challenge personally, I'm being very honest with you on this this podcast, was my self-confidence at the factory in Big Bear, because externally with the customers, the training that I'd had from Harrods was excellent and put me in really good stead to deal with those sometimes difficult conversations that one has to have with customers, or to talk to anybody really outside the business. I was absolutely fine with, but it was more internally where I struggled, because I just felt the resistance. I'm not quite sure why, because me being here provided a roadmap for the company and a long-term path of progression for the company. So yeah, it was a bit frustrating to encounter a bit of negativity and resistance to trying new things and moving forward at that time. But as I say, things have turned around completely since then. So and it's taught me what a difference it makes when you've got the right people around you who support you and have just want the company to succeed, which is what we all want.
And when you sort of took over as MD, and you started to make those changes, and you were in the pandemic and really busy and trying to support everybody, and as you said earlier, it was a difficult time for everybody, all manufacturers who weren't at home baking bread. Um, is that when you sort of really saw yourself as a more confident leader?
Yeah, I think so. I think that really helped me because of the situation with the COVID and a lot of the team being on furlough. It taught me a lot because I had to do a lot myself. Things that maybe I would have passed on to a team member or something, I couldn't because they weren't here. So that really helped me to kind of really get stuck in and understand the business a lot better. So that helped a lot. But our biggest catalyst for change really came after the pandemic. And that was just as we were kind of finding our feet again. And one of the biggest, basically one of our largest competitors had a very terrible fire, and it threw the whole supply chain into turmoil. It was a very, very difficult situation. And we were obviously asked to support as best we could, which we did, and we took on a lot of work very, very quickly, which was totally unplanned and totally unprecedented. And it's not something we were expecting, and we had to turn product from tools that were fire damaged and not designed for our machines, all the while customers screaming at us and wanting parts quick, quick, quick. Meanwhile, continuing to build machines, so building up a backlog of machines that needed parts as well. So that was a very big challenge for the company, and one I'm pleased to say we've now overcome. But that, as I say, that was a big catalyst for us to look at doing things differently, and make a lot of positive changes.
And you've mentioned it today, and I know you've mentioned it in the past as well, when we spoke, about you're very vocal about employing the best people for the role and to give them autonomy in that role. So, they get on, do their job, and then you're not sort of having to manage them, which is what everybody wants. You want to come in, do your job, have everybody else do theirs, to the best of their ability. But you've really got a strong team around you, and you've promoted people over the last few years to directors. Is this a benefit of sort of coming into a new industry and looking at it with different eyes, or is that how you saw it in your previous career?
I think possibly. I think at Harrods there was a very clear hierarchy and a very clear structure of top down. But you were given a certain degree of autonomy. But I think here it's we have all new senior leadership team that's come in over the last few months. So a new operations director, a new engineering director, a new commercial director. So that's as a brand new team, and we're all sort of bringing our own strengths, and we all respect each other for what we bring. We all recognise that we all have different skills and different weaknesses, and we complement each other quite nicely. And I think there's a nice relationship there that we all kind of work together quite nicely. And that's what a team is. It's everyone bringing different skills, and you can't do everything yourself. You have to trust that you've got people who know what they're doing on that area, and let them get on with it to a certain degree, I suppose.
Yeah, no, completely. And I have to ask, because I don't know, what are technical thermoformed plastic components? Because we haven't actually covered that yet. So I know you do something with plastic, but I don't actually know what it is that you do.
Yeah, well, I'm not technical, but basically, we do medium to very large size plastic molded parts. So things like roofs for diggers and tractors, bumper panels for caravans, seat backs and seat shells for aircraft, and all manner of different things. We can mold up to very large parts, up to 3.5 meters by 2.5 meters, which is I think probably one the largest in the country. In using vacuum forming, which is essentially taking a flat sheet of plastic, heating it up till it becomes soft, and then applying it to a mold tool, molding the part, and then we trim it using CNC trimming machines. We also do compression molding, thermocompression, which essentially is taking a sheet but squashing it between two tools rather than sucking it on with vacuum forming. So we use that to make lightweight interior trim components such as headliners and door trim panels, things like that. We also have water jet cutting facilities as well.
That sounded very technical to me, because I don't know. I'm a metals girl. I don't touch plastic. But obviously, having different ways that you'll form the products that you make mean that you can, as you say, working in the larger end and also the lightweight, so you can service more markets, which it sounds like you had to do very quickly over the last 12 months or so, when your supply chain went slightly skew-if. And we had something similar last year with the metal supply chain. And it's another type of challenge, isn't it? You've got one challenge when it's really quiet and, sort of pushing salespeople going, get more orders, get more orders. And then when you're overly busy and not that you've oversold the capacity, but you have more to get through the machines than it will do. It needs to, is it done yet? Go quicker, go quicker. And
well, that's where we were last summer. That's exactly the situation we found ourselves in, which wasn't planned, as a result of the other company unfortunately having the fire. And yeah, that was very, very stressful. We're now in a different position where we've overcome that. We've stabilized the company. We're completely up to date with all of our customers, and now we're looking to to grow the company and to look for new business, but that also is challenging in itself. So yeah, it never seems easy, this game.
No, it's always one or the other. I always say to the team here, the best time to look for new business is when you're absolutely flat out and you've got, it's like, oh, everybody wants this for Thursday, but we can only do 50 ton tomorrow. And we need to get 100 ton done for Thursday. And my answer is, well, we'll probably get 65. And no one said what time on Thursday. So, it's
Yeah.
probably, it'll be near enough 100 ton by Thursday. Trust me, we'll juggle a bit. But that's the best time to look for new business, when you're busy. But of course, you're so busy communicating with customers, managing expectations, holding your hands up when something goes wrong, because it always does when you're busy. That it's difficult to do that, isn't it? And no, it's never what we want. It's very rare you get the sweet spot. It's
Yeah.
not enough or too much. Although I'd always rather have the too much challenge.
I would now. I think now that we've done so much hard work to upgrade the company and to improve our processes, and we're doing a lot of work at the moment on things like our health and safety processes, and we're working towards getting an accreditation in health and safety. And of course, the next one we want to go for will be environmental, because that's becoming important to our customers as well. So we're doing a lot to upgrade our whole facility, and our housekeeping is better than it's ever been. But like you say, it's it was last year when we were in all the chaos of the new business, that we were getting loads and loads of inquiries, and we were having to say, well, oh, it's not the best time to be taking on new business because we're so busy. But but now, of course, we're in a much better position to deal with those new inquiries and to provide a really good service.
And that's it. You can only sell the machine time once, maybe one and a bit. But
Well, we're doing some investment in new machines as well, which is quite exciting. So we're going to be getting we've already invested in 3 new machines last year, and hopefully, no, actually last year and this year, and another one coming in at the end of this year. So we're starting to increase our capacity by investing in some new kits, which is exciting.
And as well as investing in new kit, you've had a busy few months with awards as well, being shortlisted for awards. So you were shortlisted and a finalist in the inaugural Engineering and Manufacturing Awards for Industry Leader, which is rather snazzy.
Yeah.
And the Plastic Industry Awards, you're finalists in the Best Business Initiative as well. So that must be really good for the team, for them to sort of go, yeah, we did that.
Absolutely, and that's what I said at the beginning when you asked me about the top 100. We've also, by the way, been shortlisted for the Make UK Regional Awards for the SME of the Year, which is super exciting. So,
Oh, fabulous.
yeah. So, and yes, it's very much a team award, if we were so lucky to win it. But just to be nominated is really nice, to be able to get our name out there and to raise our profile a little bit, and to just to show how far we've come in such a short time, and all the hard work that everyone's put in. I mean, when we were at the height of the chaos as of the fallout of the competitor fire last year, people were working weekends, nights, bank holidays, and everyone works so hard to get parts out the door. We've streamlined that massively now, cut it down to 2 shifts and much better productivity. But it's just the fact that everybody really did their best to get us through such a hard time. So it's nice to be able to, just to have a little bit of recognition from the industry to see what we did.
To sort of show their hard work, because I know you reward them with your fish and chip van coming around and all things like that.
Yeah, we like fish and chips and ice cream vans.
Sounds like a plan. So now you've got your productivity even more improved with the initiatives you've put in, following on the sort of the new machines and everything else. Looking to the future, what goals do you want to achieve for Big Bear going forward?
Well, as I say, in the immediate goals are to get these accreditations for health and safety and environmental. I think that will take us on the next step to where we need to be with our customer base that we have and the expectation that they have for us. I'd like to continue investing in newness, and really just to make the business successful. And we've spent so long and so much hard work just to sort of treading water and just trying to keep our heads above the waterline. And it would just be nice to be able to have some success, and for the whole team. And for me, it's important that we have an environment that people want to come to work and improve the working surroundings, and that we're a local employer of choice, that people want to come here and they want to work here. And we already have we're about to launch it's actually our 25th anniversary this year, so we're going to do a little celebration in October, and I thought it'd be a good opportunity to launch our inaugural long service awards. So we're going to be doing that, and we'll be giving out an award for 25 years of service. So yeah, just keep going, I guess, and try to get some success. That'd be nice.
The one question I haven't asked you, which I'm quite curious about, and I really hope the awards are in the shape of a bear, by the way, but why is Big Bear called Big Bear?
Yeah, everybody else that question.
I'm nothing if not original.
It is original, and I think that's why it's called Big Bear. And that really, as I said, my father had a company before Big Bear, which was a major tier one supplier to the automotive industry. It was much bigger than Big Bear, employed about 1,000 people, and was an important supplier. And they were quite very progressive and pioneering in their day of what they did with plastic molding technology. And that was acquired in 1998, and then not one to sit back and enjoy his retirement. So my father started Big Bear with the vacuum forming machines, and he was with his technical guy, and they were discussing what they were going to call the factory, and they needed to come up with a name for the company. And Pete, his technical guy, was like, well, came up with a few suggestions that were, I think, pretty dry, like Plastics R Us or ABC thermoforming. And I think my dad said something like, well, no one's going to remember that. We'll call it Big Bear. And that was that. So
I think it's a brilliant name, although I do have your operations manager saved in my mobile phone as Big Bear Johnny. So your operations director, I should say. If ever anybody's going through my contacts wondering who it is.
I'm sure he'd be thrilled to know that's
I'm sure he wouldn't. And finally, last question. What's the best advice you've ever been given?
Well, I'm very lucky because I've been given lots of good advice over the years by lots of different people, and certainly being able to work with my dad has been a real privilege, and to be able to learn from him and learn on the job, as it were. And he's given me lots of sort of sound bites advice that I always use and think of. One of which, of course, is make it happen, and the other one is. A memorable one would be the quality of the result is equal to the quality of the instruction. He always said to me, there's no point blaming somebody else if you haven't told them what to do properly, it's your fault. And then I guess another one that sticks in my mind is really from my Harrods days, which I don't know if is advice, but more of an instruction. But it was my Devil Wears Prada boss used to say, teeth make smiles and smiles make sales. And she used to get up on the shop floor in front of like 300 people and tell us all that on a Monday morning. But actually she's right, because if you treat people well and you talk to them nicely and with respect, and I think it gets you a long way. So that's kind of how I interpret that. If you smile at people, then it does help.
Oh, thank you so much, Emma, for coming on and talking to me. I've really enjoyed chatting to you. I'm desperately trying to think of a way I can incorporate the Devil Wears Prada into the title of your podcast.
Yeah, that would be a bit different to the other titles, I guess.
Well, I do try and make it slightly, a bit different. The Big Bear Wears Prada. You could always go that.
A bear wearing Prada.
Oh, thank you so much, Emma. And I know you're going to make Big Bear into such an amazing success, and enjoy your 25th anniversary as well.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.